The Have You Heard About podcast was filmed and recorded in Canberra on the lands of the Ngunnawal and Ngambri people, but also
Melbourne, on the land of the Kulin Nation and the Bunurong people.
We'd also like to give a special shout out to ANU CPAS for letting us use their recording equipment and studio for this special episode. We hope you enjoy. You asked for it, we're making it. Welcome back to the Have You Heard About podcast, our second plant episode. Today we're going to be speaking about some really interesting topics. I'm going to talk about plants. Do they have a brain? Can they respond and learn? Find out soon. Short answer is, well, yeah, but in a really different way to humans. And you're going to have to listen on to find out more. Oh no, what a shame, Maddie.
What a shame.
What are you speaking about today?
So I'm going to be speaking about the amazing, miraculous plant, the dandelion, which is known as a common weed, but it wasn't originally like that, and there's actually a lot of fun ways you can use it. So I want to spread that information for people. It's not art related, but I find it interesting.
Hey, if we find it interesting, that's all we're here for.
Exactly.
Maybe the art is in how we appreciated it all along.
Exactly.
Welcome
That's
to
where
my
it is.
art appreciation society.
This is just foreshadowing of me never sticking to my topic.
I mean, that's a whole mood. Welcome to Things Be Complex.
They sure do.
Yeah, so today, Maddie, I've picked a plant to talk about it as well. I kind of forgot that you were going to talk about dandelions as a singular plant, and I also picked a singular plant to talk about. You may have seen these ones on TikTok recently. They are called M.podia plants, commonly known as sensitive plants or shame plants.
Are these the ones that close up?
Yeah!
Yeah!
So they
they're
respond to touch or to any number of other stimulus by closing up. They've got feather kind of leaves, and they close up and they retract when something touches them. So this is a reaction that was it's theorized to stop the plant's leaves from being eaten. So when a predator comes along, it's oh, I'm not a plant, don't eat me, and it closes up as a natural adaptation. So yeah, they these little the feather-like leaves, they curl up, and they can curl up in seconds and moments, but they can take almost an hour to unfold again.
An hour?
An hour. I didn't know that.
They just want to be really sure that the animal isn't going to eat them. They're like, I'll stay like this for a while.
Yeah. Crazy. Yeah, so this mechanically, let's get a little bit scientific. You know, why not? Okay, get in the mood for some science. Mechanically, this occurs through the water migrating away, so it comes away from the base of the stalk.
Okay.
And that happens through potassium ions. The plant is oh no, something touched me. Potassium, come this way. Potassium ions go that way, causing water to follow it because the gradient has changed. And it's your favorite O word, Maddie. Your favorite science O word. Do you remember? We spoke about this in the first podcast episode.
Osmosis?
It's osmosis, baby!
Yeah, osmosis, baby.
Yeah, so potassium goes through the cell walls, and water, because of osmosis, is oh, wait for me, I'ma come too. And then that's what makes it shrink, because the water's just yeeted away. So yeah, that's kind of cool. Australia, we have a few different versions of this plant. I'm not sure if you knew that, Maddie.
No, I wasn't sure, because I feel like I've never seen it, because I feel like if I did, I would immediately know. I'd just be like this all day.
Touch it. I kind of really want one. So we have 5 different versions of this plant. In Australia, they're called the Neptuna species, which is a bit fancy. We also do have a variety of the mimosa. We have Mimosa pigro versus Mimosa podia. But Mimosa pigro in Australia is actually classified as a weed.
Really?
Yeah, so I guess natural selection just worked out too well if the plant is so prolific that we had to classify it as a weed.
Imagining a weed of those things where it's they're all just very shy, but they're still growing everywhere. It's I want to spread, but I also don't want to be touched.
I'm shy, don't touch me is basically this mimosa plant. Okay, so that's just a little intro to this plant. And they're so interesting that a lot of people want to study them, right? Me and you, we kind of just want to study them by having them in our own house and doing experiments, which is basically just be us touching them over and over.
Pretty much.
In a consensual way, I think.
Just to clarify.
I was oh, that's a really bad soundbite. But yeah, they're
Don't
super
take that out of
interesting.
context.
Please don't take it out of context. They are a super interesting plant. Therefore, a super interesting researcher called Monica Gagliano studied how this plant would react when it was dropped. So the plant, when dropped, and this is going back to the original M.podia plants that are like all over TikTok, when those plants are dropped, the plant feels itself falling and like curls right up and retracts its leaves. So that's like its normal response to being dropped. This researcher, Gagliano, created an apparatus kind of machine kind of thing that would drop the plants but wouldn't make it have an impact. So it's like dropped to like here, kind of like a suspension, kind of like one of those towers you have at theme parks. You know, the ones that like drop you a little bit but you never have the impact?
It's the Batman Tower, but for houseplants.
It's the Batman Tower for houseplants. So you just get scared, but there's no reason to. So at the start of this experiment that the researcher did, every time the plant was dropped, it would react and like curl itself up and retract its leaves, and it would like brace for impact. But eventually, it learnt not to react.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they taught the plant that it was fine if it was falling.
Yeah, they taught this one plant that it was fine if it was falling. And I mean, you can be like, oh, that's cool. Like it learnt. That's pretty awesome. It gets more awesome.
Oh my god.
So the kicker is this. That's a learned behavior. And that's really cool. But the researcher would then wait for like a month, maybe more, between dropping the plant, and it would remember.
Really?
And curl
That
its leaves
long?
and not dropped. So not only do we now know or can theorize and extrapolate from this research that plants can learn, they also have a memory that lasts over a month.
Wild.
Super, super wild. And the cool thing is Gagliano, she was like, oh my god, these plants are so cool. She's continued to research them. There's a whole bunch. I could talk for hours on this. I'm not going to, but there is the potential. Let's not go to that word right now. But everyone, ladies and gentlemen, viewers, boys, girls, non-binary, pals, gals, let me know if you want to hear more about Gagliano's research. And she said quite a lot on this subject, and I kind of wanted to bring it to like a little bit of a close with this quote or this thought from her. So she said that though unlike plants, unlike humans, plants don't have brains or a neural tissue like in your head, but they have a really elegant and sophisticated calcium-based signaling network in their cells that is similar to an animal's memory processes. So that's the quote from her, which essentially means using the element calcium, which, fun fact, is the 5th most abundant popular element in the Earth's crust. Yeah, that's right, calcium. The chemical that is super good for promoting bone strength and growth is the 5th most abundant chemical in the Earth's crust, not chemical element. I didn't know this before I started researching it. That's super fun.
The Earth has got bones.
Plants don't have bones. Or do they? Find out soon in the next podcast episode.
Find out next time.
But yeah, they have this really awesome chemical calcium signaling system between cells that gives plants abilities to both learn and remember, and that's super funky in itself.
Yeah, because I'm trying to think of like how a plant would even recognize that it's falling in the first place, because plants don't typically grow in high places where they can just be knocked over.
Yeah. Well, there's some like really interesting things about like plants that fall out of trees, and if they like latch onto other branches or if they take the parts of the tree down with them, and that kind of interplay between them. The more I learn about plants, the more I feel like I could really become a plant botanist, and I don't need another thing on my plate, but like I would do it if you dared me.
Hey Ella, do you truth or dare?
I'm thinking truth, baby.
Playing it safe.
Please don't ask me to pick between my favorite Hoyas. I do have an answer, but they don't need to hear it.
They don't need to know that. The truth hurts.
Yeah, the truth hurts. So, in summary, plants can learn, plants can remember. Another question you might have is, can plants feel? And I'm just going to give a super quick one or two sentence summary. Yes, plants can feel, and that's a whole other kettle of fish. So, Apple and Crowcroft in 2014 found out that plants can feel when insects are chewing on them. Oh my god. and they respond with a line of chemical defenses. So there's a specific plant response for when herbivores are like nom 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 nom, and they're like, oh, it tickles, get, and it sends out chemicals that are supposed to deter the insects from chewing on them.
Just the thought of a plant feeling that it's being eaten alive raises a lot of questions.
Yeah, raises a lot of questions for like when we kill plants to eat them.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so sorry, carrot, that has been pulled out of the ground, but I find you delicious.
Yeah, isn't there like a thing where people have been able to record like plants screaming when they're being like pulled out of the ground or something?
Yeah, there's like this whole kind of like side of the internet, side of people and things we find fascinating that is like recording plants. I found this really cool one recently on TikTok that was someone recording the sound of mushrooms in a forest. And they like had little clippers they put onto the mushrooms, and then kind of like translated the waves into a way that made sense for us auditorily. And it's so pretty, like it's so ethereal. I love it so much.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I imagine mushrooms as like, you know, wholesome cottagecore vibes. I'm like, what if they make like a terrifying sound?
It just
just eternal screaming from these cute little mushrooms.
Yeah, so plants, they get cooler, they get scarier, they get cooler again, is my summary.
Very accurate summary.
Very accurate summary.
That's so cool, because like I'd always seen clips of those plants on TikTok and stuff, and I was like, oh, this is kind of fun, like they just close up, and so I just kind of thought of it as like Venus flytraps or something, but I didn't think, how do they know they're being touched?
I mean, that's the question, really, like, how do they know? And I guess, just to spook a bit of science here, science is asking the question. Like, science is like, how do they know? And then you devise a research method, a research topic, a better question to find out how. Like, having the question in the first place. And this is one of my favorite, like, paraphrasing quotes from Dr. Carl, is that it's the question that wins you the Nobel Prize, not the answer. Like, you gotta think of, oh no, what do I want to learn before you can learn it? And that's science, baby.
Hell yeah.
That's the fairy tale of science. Am I mentioning the fairy tale of science again? Yes, I am.
Just maybe.
Shout out to Dr. Simpson, who ruined my life forever with that phrase.
Shout out Dr. Simpson. We love him.
We do love him. Talking about things we love, Maddie, dandelions?
Dandelions, man. I'm obsessed now after reading this book.
Love them more since researching this topic?
100%.
Oh, I'm ready to love them. Convince me.
Yes. Well, the whole thing of the fairy tale of science is going to come in later, so get keen.
Oh, I'm so excited. Yes.
I have so many notes, so I need to figure out a way to talk about this where I won't go for an hour. Okay. So, just as like, we'll do it like a quick intro. So, the name dandelion, I'll have a fun fact to start off with.
Oh, tell me.
The name dandelion comes from the French words Dandelion. I'm definitely not pronouncing that right, but it means lion's tooth.
Ooh.
And we don't know exactly why they're based on lion's teeth, but that's like across most of history, like everyone's kind of referred to it as that and like a few other names.
Oh, interesting.
But we don't actually know why, but I find it pretty cool. It's like, it's just like a happy little name, but I realize it means lion's tooth. It's a bit dramatic. And so at the moment, like, we've always known them as weeds, and they're just these annoying plants that grow in our lawns. We gotta get rid of them, and nobody likes them. But historically, they were super valuable, and like really, like everyone loved them and used them for so many things.
What? They were super valuable?
Yeah.
Tell me more.
Because like, let me check my notes. Yeah, like they were a very valued commodity to the point where they were like brought on voyages across different countries when there was like colonization happening. And so you can find dandelions on every continent except for Antarctica.
Oh!
And they can grow anywhere as long as it's not underwater or above the tree line where trees physically can't grow. Like, they can grow in like any condition. That's why you see them coming out of like pavements and stuff.
They are the ultimate weed.
They are. And so they're really useful because they're actually like a really good superfood, and you can use them for medicinal purposes. Like,
Okay.
Like, you can make wine, you can make jelly, you can make jam, you can make vegan honey, you can use it as an ingredient in like practically anything. People like make salads out of the leaves. People keep putting like the flower part into cakes and stuff. I saw a banana bread recipe. I was like, I need to try that.
I've seen like a recipe for dandelion tea.
Yeah. Yeah, like you can use it for so many things. But stuff happened along the way and we were like, no, screw dandelions. We don't need them, but we do.
When did we learn to hate dandelions? Why would we do that to ourselves?
Oh, we'll get there. We're gonna get there. I have so much to get through first.
I feel like I need to prepare myself for the roller coaster. Strap in. I've come off Batman's Tower of Terror and I'm heading straight for the Scooby-Doo coaster and I don't know what turns are about to take.
Pretty much. So I guess we can do some facts about like how they work and like why they grow so well.
Yeah.
So like we know that they have like they turn into like the little parachute thingy that like floats around and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what carries the seeds around. And so it's really like optimized because they're very light and they can travel like either a few meters or like for days just constantly. So they can spread really easily. And then the seed at the bottom has like little barbs coming out of it so that it like really plants itself into the soil. And as the parachute part moves around in the wind, it kind of digs itself further in.
Oh.
And so it's like really solid in terms of getting in there. And then once it's growing, it has two different like root systems because typically plants will only have one. And they'll either do like the really fast approach of like lots of roots everywhere, try to get water however you can. Or they do one really long root to try to get like a good water source, but it takes more time and energy. But dandelions do both because they're just that efficient.
They just do the most.
They really do. And so they can grow super easily and they tend to be both the first plants to bloom and the last ones because they'll bloom at like the start of like during winter when there's a layer of snow, they'll be blooming underneath. And the animals can tell and so they like go under the snow to find them. And that like helps spread the seeds even further. And then at the end of spring, they're still the last ones to be blooming. Like they're just constantly going. But the thing is, one of the reasons why they're so amazing is that they help the plants around them. They help fertilize the soil and the plants around them. And so the author of this book, okay, I didn't explain this. I found out about this because of a book called The Lion's Teeth. Very good. And the way that she describes it is dandelions are like the medics of nature.
Yeah.
So nature will see like there's a disaster, like all of these plants have been torn out of the ground, it's just soil, or there's been a fire or something. We need to send in something so there'll be new life. And dandelions do that. And so they'll start to grow and they fertilize the soil and help the other plants grow. So it like starts with dandelions and grass and then shrubs and trees.
Okay, dandelions, go off.
Yeah, but the way that they're not a weed is that because they help other plants grow so much, those plants outshadow them and like stop them from getting sun as they eventually die out. And so they don't actually last when they grow. Like, they just show up, help everybody else out, and then they leave and they go on to the next area.
My mind is blown.
Like, they're just really helpful, happy plants, and they're just trying to do their best. And everyone's like, no, they're a weed. And so one of the first ways this happened was because of my biggest enemy, lawns.
Oh, not the lawns. The monoculture. It's back to haunt you.
We don't like the lawns. So basically, like, this is very focused on America, this book, which is annoying, but we're used to that.
Oh, we're so used to that.
Yeah. So the author talked about how dandelions were brought to America on purpose because the settlers wanted to, like, have kind of like she had this funny analogy where she was like, it's useful, it's also like a bit of familiarity, like they can use it for stuff, but it also reminds them of home. And she compared it to when you're going on holiday in a foreign country and you see a McDonald's and you're like, I know this is familiar to me, I can get what I need.
That's a good analogy. I'm gonna give that 4 out of 5 stars.
Hell yeah. So yeah, they brought it over to be helpful and they just used it for medicines and food and anything they needed and just as for a sense of home. But then after a few generations of them settling and finally like getting like proper like cities starting to build, people wanted to like actually have proper houses, not just huts, have a nice garden, and so it became a status symbol to have a lawn.
I'm so over that.
I know.
So over it.
Because if you had a lawn, that meant that you not only had enough money to own heaps of land, but you also didn't have to use all of that land for plants that were useful. You could use it just for whatever. And you had enough servants to help you mow the lawn constantly.
This is ruining my life.
I know. It's like, it was just a way to show your wealth. And the thing is, whenever you mow a lawn, you're cutting down all the grass and you're cutting down all the plants. And so nature's like, oh, it's a disaster. Plants are gone. We'll send in the dandelions. And so dandelions will grow to try to help. And people are like, no, they're making my lawn ugly. I don't like them.
Nature is trying to help us. Why aren't we more grateful?
Exactly. So it's just so upsetting because like they don't deserve this. Let's see if I can find the other thing. The other thing, okay, so this is where science stuff comes in, and I think you'll find this interesting. So the medical industry. Dandelions were used for medicine, and they were so helpful. Like, this one scientist said that it was hard to find something that dandelions couldn't be used for.
Okay.
Like, they're just so helpful. But then over time throughout history, medicine started to move away from being like a herbalist thing that women did amongst families and passed down through generations to being a more professional field for men who were in higher education.
When women's hobbies become professional, there are more men in them. Hate that. Chefs? Cooking? For one? Can you believe?
Literally. And so yeah, there started to be this real divide between, like, and it was also like a witchcraft thing, and so like if women who were practicing medicine, it would usually be like, oh, she's a witch, we gotta burn her at the stake, whatever. I'm just gonna take water because I am speaking too fast.
She's so excited.
I'm so excited. Like a cool fact that they pointed out was that all of like the like words for like magical items that witches put in their potions were just terms for like plants. Like Eye of Newt was a form of was a kind of plant, and I think like the snout of something was like actually a dandelion. Like all of the slang for like, you know, boiled trouble is just plants.
It's just plant slang.
It's just plant slang. And so yeah, like women were vilified for doing any kind of medicine because they were witches. And people weren't literate, and so the poorer you were, the less likely you were to know this kind of thing. And so the knowledge stopped being passed down through people because doctors were kind of taking over, and they were making everything very inaccessible to learn because it was all Greek and Latin names, and they would just be guarding all of their info all the time.
So it literally changed from common names that females were using as a hobby, kind of, not as a hobby, I mean, you know, a well-practiced part of their lives that just wasn't respected by men, to kind of like a patriarchal, we're going to stop you from being a part of this by using our own terminology that you're not allowed to use because you're not educated and it's in Latin.
Exactly.
Hate that.
So, this leads to a really interesting guy that you will love.
Oh my god, I'm so ready.
He's called Dr. Nicholas Culpeper. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong.
Beautiful.
But he was a doctor in the 1600s who hated the medical industry because he was like, you guys are all just hoarding information for your own wealth. You're just trying to market really expensive treatments so that you can get more money, and you're not doing things that actually help people. Because the thing is, doctors didn't want to like just go outside and get their hands dirty and pick up plants to use to treat people. They wanted to like import expensive things and use whatever they wanted. It was too common for them to go and grab a dandelion from the front yard.
Boo.
But he was like, no, you guys suck.
Accessibility king.
Accessibility. And so he really championed trying to make it accessible, as he spent ages writing his own book that was used for like years and years after, that like explained different methods for helping people that they could actually understand. And it was in just layman's terms, and it was just so simple, and he's amazing.
I'm gonna buy the book. We love a jargonless science accessibility king.
We do.
I'm so proud of him.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Yes. But yeah, so he spent all of his time healing people during the day. Like, he would never turn anyone away, which meant it was really hard for him to write the book because he was always helping people.
Oh, no.
Like, what a man. Yeah, so like dandelions just became really stigmatized because it was seen as like a weird herbalist witch thing. and so it wasn't a useful tool anymore. But like, it was always useful. It's always been useful. But we're like, no, we want pretty lawns and annoying medical industries to get more
How
money.
did we fall for this dandelion propaganda?
Yes.
I can't believe it. I thought they were a weed. I've been done dirty. I've done myself dirty.
So I just remember the other thing I was going to talk to you about, which was how it talks about the mythology of plants.
Wow.
Plants, magic, science. So the author talks about how the mythology of plants has kind of been passed down through children. So even though like the knowledge hasn't been like specifically taught through generations anymore, children still somehow pick up on all these like magical ideas around plants. Like, because she said that she'd go up to people and ask them, hey, do you know about plant magic? And be like, no, that's stupid. And then she'd be like, what does it mean if you find a four-leaf clover? And they're like, oh, it means you got good luck. She'd say, what do you do with a plant if you want to know if someone loves you? Oh, you do. Loves me not. Like, there's just so many ways that kids continue this messaging when you're young. And so kids know, like, if they find a dandelion, you blow on it and you make a wish. And there's all these different ideas of what you can do with a dandelion. Because some were like, oh, if you blow on it 3 times and there's still seeds on it, then that means you can't, if there's no seeds left, you have to leave because you need to be help the parents at home or something. And there was one where it was like, you can figure out where your lover is if you just follow the direction of where the seeds go.
Oh my goodness.
Like, there's all these different methods and stuff.
We have a superstition here at ANU that is when the fluff falls from the trees. If you haven't started studying, it's too late. You haven't started studying in time for exams. And it falls seasonally. Yeah, so like the fluff falls. And students are like, oh no, study time! And it happens both first and second semester. And that's a superstition that's passed not through children, but definitely through, I feel like, a younger generation of people.
Yeah, so now plants have kind of reached this point where there's still this kind of magical vibe to them, but they're not seen as like, oh, this is a food that everybody eats, this is a thing we use to like heal wounds. The other reason that dandelions were kind of vilified was because post-World War II, there were so many advances in medicine and technology in general that it was really looked down on to use any kind of herbal stuff. Like, it was all about progress, moving forward, doing the next best thing. So nobody cared about whatever was in your backyard. Because it follows this theory that, like, if there's an abundance of something, it's not valuable. Like, if you can find something in your front yard and people aren't selling it to you for lots of money, then it's not worth anything. But it is actually worth something. Like, you can make so much stuff with these plants. But we've just been taught, oh no, it's a weed. It's like, if there's an abundance of anything, it's not good. It's like pigeons. Pigeons are really smart animals. But just because that we see them everywhere in cities and stuff, we think, oh, they're just dumb pigeons.
There's too many of them, therefore they can't be good. It's not like there are too many of them because they're so intelligent. Scientifically, like, natural selection has worked so well that there are so many of them.
Yeah, like, it's wild.
Which is also weird, may I add, for humans, who we are literally kind of dominant because there are so many of us, and we have such a big impact on nature.
But we aren't the problem, no.
We would never be the problem. Humans being humans' own problem? Hi, climate change? Ha!
The dog just burst her way through the door again because she can't make up her mind. I'm just trying to make sure I didn't miss anything I wanted to talk about. There's just so much interesting stuff, and I just love them so much. That was another fun fact about, like, the actual biology of dandelions.
Yeah.
Is that the flower isn't actually one flower, it's a flower head, and it has hundreds of tiny flowers on it. And so that helps the pollination, because there's all these different flowers. And also because of how bright the yellow is, that really attracts insects. And so this plant is just so good at doing everything a plant needs to do.
Improvise, adapt, overcome.
But yeah, and so like there are actually all these really, really tiny flowers that have all this pollen, so they can have lots of like insects come to it and spread more pollen. So they're just so good at their job. I just love them so much.
They're so good at their job, which is existing. They're doing it so well. Good job, Dandelions.
They do it so well. The other thing, they don't need help from humans to stay alive because of how good they are.
Get it.
Like, they really thrive if you do. Like, apparently you can grow a dandelion that's, like, up to, like, your waist. And you can get, like, even more stuff out of them. But you don't need to. They can still just grow wherever they want.
I kind of want a pet dandelion in a little pot in my house. But if you knock it, every houseplant have a dandelion.
Exactly. But yeah, they're just very good plants. They're good at what they do. You can make literally anything with them. They're just very valuable to have. So if you see one, don't pluck it just to get rid of it. Use the damn thing.
Your homework from listening to this podcast is appreciate a dandelion next time you see one.
Yeah, just have a good time. And, like, it doesn't matter if you do pluck one just to blow the seeds away, because they're so well rooted that, like, even if you leave, like, an inch of one of their roots, they grow back. Like, they're also compared it to, like, the Hydra head. Like, you cut one head off, two come out. Like, it's very hard to eradicate dandelions, but that doesn't mean that they're weeds, because they still don't overrun everything. They help the plants, they help us. We just got to appreciate that.
Perfectly balanced, as all things should be.
Dandelions are the best. I love them.
Dandelions are the best. I wonder if dandelions have a memory. What they've learned. What could dandelions tell us?
True. Because they've been around for a long time. Like, I think the book said the earliest recorded use of it for a medicinal thing was, like, 1100, like, medieval times.
Oh, my lord.
And that's only, like, the written time. There's also evidence of, like, there was, like, that famous Neanderthal burial where they found flowers around it. Uh-huh. Dandelions were in there among those flowers.
Oh my goodness.
Like, they've always been used for something. We've always found a way.
Life finds a way.
Life finds a way.
That's super cool.
They're just so cool. Like, they were just dumb plants when I was a kid that we just tore up when we were bored and made daisy chains out of.
Maybe me and you and all of our sweet, sweet dear podcast listeners, maybe we should develop some dandelion research questions and just all share in a Nobel Prize together in biology and chemistry and history. I feel like this has been a pretty good history deep dive of dandelions.
Yeah, and there was, like, a lot more I could have covered, but I was like, that's not the most important bit.
Like for part 2.
Like for part 2. And I still got, like, a quarter of the book to go, so...
So you read this entire... You read 3/4 of this book just for this podcast?
Yeah, because I'd wanted to read it for a while, and I finally got an ebook version of it. And I'd started it, like, a week ago. And then when we found out we were doing plants again, I was like, I've got to finish this book. But I got through the main chunk of it and found, like, the main info that I wanted, so I was like, we good. But yeah, I also, like, researched a bunch of recipes, and there are so many. Like, just Google dandelion recipe, and there are so many, and they all look so good.
Oh no, I'm gonna do it. Need to find some dandelions. We need to grow some dandelions.
Hell yeah. Just grow some dandelions and use the dandelions. Appreciate the dandelion. You're welcome.
Appreciate plants and how intelligent they are.
They are so smart. Like, goddamn. We can learn some things from some plants.
We sure can. We hope that you learned some things from us today. We hope you had a fun time listening to us. This is episode 3 of the Have You Heard About podcast. Thank you to ANU CPAS, who's let me use their facilities and microphone today. And thank you to Maddie for coming on and video chatting me. It sucks to be away from you, but I'm so happy we get to use this little time to do our podcast together.
Hell yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We will see you next time for the Have You Heard About podcast episode number 4.
Hell yeah. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Bye.
Bye.